Morning, everybody, or good afternoon. This is answer on our products Dispatch and Aqueduct, where we're going to discuss some of the effectiveness of the surfactants for use in herbicides, insecticides, use of fungicides as well, and including nitrogen efficiencies. So we want to take probably about 20 minutes to go through some of the attributes of several products that can help lawn care operators, sports turf managers to improve their inputs by using several of the products that Aquatrols services and sells to Tessman seed. So over the next few slides, we'll go through some basic fundamentals of the turf market and water basics, and then share with you about some of the products and go through some testimonials and actually show some data that shows the importance of using several of the holders or movers, as I call it. And then if there's any questions that come up toward the end, please do so. And if we can't provide the answer on the webinar today, we'll at least get your name and then respond back accordingly. So with this, let's move forward into the turf market. Predominantly, most turf managers want to provide a very good turf for their homeowners, commercial properties, sports turf, and to reduce any type of stresses that may occur. And that can be from internal factors to external. But predominantly, water is a critical element in maintaining good, healthy turf, along with many other programs, and that can include surfactants, wetting agents in your program. As I had mentioned earlier, several of our products have been well known to improve nitrogen efficiencies, herbicides, insecticides, and if you're using fungicides to control various leaf pathogens like rust, red thread, dollar spot, one of our key products can actually help allow that active ingredient to move uniformly through the surface and be more advantageous to the fungicide or to the inputs you're putting in. One of the other key components in the turf market is water. As we know, water is becoming more and more important in our community as well as turf management. And if one could look at using some opportunities with the surfactant technology, you can actually reduce your irrigation or actually improve the efficiencies of water to soil ratios that can improve resiliency as well as firmness and better playability if you're on a sports turf or in the home lawn, give the homeowner or commercial property a better plant throughout the summer. A couple of ideas as far as water basics. It's crucial for any turf manager to look at the turf quality. So the whole idea is to look at the soil. If you can, do a soil sample, take a soil probe, look at it to see if you've got a good soil, mineral mix, minimal thatch, and a lot of factors can help improve that basic fundamental. One of the key things that Aquatrols has done is we contract a lot of information and test with universities throughout the country, such as Penn State, such as Purdue. University of Florida has been one of our key elements in water management. But in the last year or two, Aquatrols has actually gone out to purchase several acres outside their company property in Philadelphia, in which we have a turf research farm where we're going to be doing more evaluation internally with warm season and cool season grasses, as well as doing more work within greenhouses. So what creates hydrophobic conditions? Predominantly, it's surface, plants growing. At the bottom, there's subsurface where roots are decaying, combination of soil, organic matter, thatch. And at the same time, water has positive and negative attributes, or positive and negative charges, that can provide attractive and unattractive forces. And by all means, sometimes fungus can also provide some hydrophobic conditions. If one takes a look at the profile of the turf, we see that on the surface we have waxes that actually get broken off and fall off from the leaf canopy down to the soil thatch interface, creating some organic matter. Plant roots actually secrete some of the exudates out of the root system and can cause a little bit of a surface holding, as well as maybe a sealing around some of the soil particles. And at the same time, fungal hyphae, any type of root pathogens can also create some type of hydrophobic conditions. So the interaction between the plants, the thatch, the soil can cause plants to not absorb moisture, or at the same time, possibly that soil moisture is moving very rapidly, and you actually want to use a tool, a product that can hold moisture near the surface. The idea is to have a good water to air ratio in the soil. So as I mentioned, there's hydrophobic conditions at the surface, conditions in the soil profile, and the idea is to look at the soil makeup, in which predominantly if you take a handful of soil, 45 to 50% of it is basically minerals with air in the soil, with water. And again, we want to talk about that excellent ratio between air and water for plant health. And by all means, there's organic matter that's in that soil profile from roots to other organisms. So again, Aquatrols technology for the last many decades has been to address some of these areas as far as air to water ratios. Let's take a look at some of those factors. But by all means, you want to have what I would call a consistent matrix flow of your water through the profile versus a finger flow, where sometimes when you're applying a surfactant, or applying an input such as a fungicide, herbicide, insecticide, you think you're getting it applied to the soil, but by all means, if there's some resistance to that, through some photography, you can see there's actually some repellency of those active ingredients that are moving down to the profile. And if you can improve that input, like I mentioned, from a pre-emerge, insecticide, nitrogen, and have a more consistent uniform flow, then this is the opportunity that one wants to have for their program. So it's all about consistency. So a soil surfactant in a soil with a surfactant penetrant can provide more consistency with a wetting front throughout the soil versus an untreated. I'd like to take a few moments to look at the portfolio products and specifically look at two active ingredients that Aquatrol has been successful with, and we have a lot of good work with Tessman seed out there that provides uniform programs to many of our turf managers. One of the products that we talk about is Dispatch. And Dispatch is a tool that can be used for more of a infiltration and penetration from the irrigation or rainfall, and we've definitely had a lot of rainfall here in the Midwest over the last several weeks. So as one is looking at Dispatch sprayable, it can be a penetrant as well as a filtration molecule. It's got two synergistic effects, and at the same time, it will provide an enhancement of any type of pre-emerge, such as barricade, prodiamine, dimension, and any type of subsurface molecules, whether it be a surface feeding material like a bifenthrin, or a preventative grub control like a celipron, imidacloprid, merit, meridian. So think in terms of applying a surfactant like Dispatch that can improve that uniform consistency, that matrix flow at the soil that should have faced for better improvement, because the bottom line is to provide better turf quality and have reduction in callbacks. That's the key. The other product that came to Aquatrols about 1.5 years ago is the Aqueduct Flex. Aqueduct is a product that's been around for a number of years that turf managers like to apply it on turf for localized dry spot, fair ring complex, and it was a sprayable that you could apply both curative and preventative. But over the last 12 to 18 months, we've teamed up with one of our key formulators to put this on a dispersible granule so that one can go out and apply that when and where. And it's very easy to apply, no odor, and the Aqueduct Flex can be used to, again, improve soil percolation, any type of stresses on the turf, or maybe some compaction around edges of sports fields, any type of sidewalk areas where we're getting wear patterns, and you want to get a little bit more better percolation of movement of water. And again, that whole idea of water to air ratio, Aqueduct Flex can be a tool that can be used very effectively and quickly, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. So if taking a look at Dispatch, Dispatch is actually a product that's carried by Tessman in a 2.5 gallon jug. There's 2 of those per jug, which would be 5 gallons. So it is in a liquid formulation in a brand new packaging that you see here. It's specifically a sprayable application that one can use with a handgun or in a boom or a grounds wheelie that can be applied, and does not necessarily have to be watered in after application. The key thing with Dispatch is it's got 2 synergistic block polymers in there, which helps give it its true attributes as it's a holder and a mover out there. more or less a non-ionic surfactant, keeps irrigation and water more efficient throughout the profile. So if you have some slope areas, maybe some flat areas like on sports fields, it can help move that water down when you have multiple types of sporting events on fields. At the same time, again, the enhancement of the efficacy of the product in pre-emergence, insecticides, fungicides, and nitrogen can be a real key attribute on that. One of the key things that Aquatrols did in conjunction with The Ohio State was to look at a runoff. And we look here at this picture, we've got a minimum slope of 4%, and then there's a collection area at the very end. So the idea was to apply dispatch on that area and measure the percolation and runoff. And as some of the information that came together, there was very little runoff collected. At the same time, they were looking at dispatch for nitrogen retention and leaf nitrogen as far as using products such as ammonium sulfate or urea ammonium nitrate to measure the impact of nitrogen efficacy. And on the left chart, you see from May through June through July, August, that the injection that was applied basically at about a 12 ounce per acre application, which is a quarter of an ounce a thousand, showed that the amount of nitrogen availability was much superior and available to the plant versus the control. Looking at the retention area, looking at urea ammonium nitrate, about a pound per thousand down in Florida, the idea is that the product in the green is the dispatch and the blue color shows that the retention was much less. So the idea of retaining that nitrogen in the soil is much more effective, whether you're using any type of slow release, a polymer coated, a soluble, a foliar. So it can be another tool for increasing performance. And it can be a nice upsell for your homeowners or sports turf area. One of the other trials they did several years ago is down in Florida, was to improve the performance by looking at some Bermuda grass. So the containers here show on the left an unfertilized versus fertilized, and then looking at 16 to 24 ounces of dispatch with the fertilizer. That's equivalent to about a third to a half ounce per thousand. When looking at the top, the performance is very noticeable where you had a control measure with a little bit of fertilizer on the top right, and then when applying dispatch from a third of an ounce per thousand to a half ounce, think in terms of turf quality, better improvement of the plant, and if you're looking at home lawns to commercial properties again, to any type of sports area, you've got a better plant health for your customer and any type of activity on the fields. So again, another tool that can be a very effective way to improve the plant's plant health. Let's take a look at wilt. You get into those summer drought areas, or maybe fields aren't irrigated, home lawns aren't irrigated, and think in terms if you could use dispatch to improve water efficiency, especially when communities have water restrictions. If you're in a drought area here in the Midwest, I know certain communities allow water certain times of the morning or afternoon or every other day based upon your property's address. But looking at down in Florida, where we did some work, it's on Bermuda grass, but it still has a powerful story of where you're taking the amount of moisture and measuring the amount of wilt at 25% in an untreated area to about half, up to 40%, and then using dispatch, you're reducing that down almost a good 50% to about a half ounce per acre on the bottom right, where they're using ammonium sulfate, and the wilt is actually reduced dramatically. So to look back from nutrient nitrogen availability to wilt efficiencies, where would you see this fit in your program if you'd use dispatch in your overall turfgrass sports fields or even in the lawn and landscape market? So I'm using multiple markets just for an evaluation. And then here's more of a lawn treated in the south. Again, it was a Bermuda grass that was treated, but it does play into cool season grasses. It's a bluegrass rye or blue fescue. We have dispatch on the left side, untreated on the right. So again, in droughty conditions or where you want to improve any type of resiliency, Dispatch can be a very effective tool and very economical. I've had the question come up saying, hey, John, what would be, or hey, JT, what would be the cost of this when using Dispatch? And very simply, it's about $15 an acre at the half ounce per thousand. So from a cost value on using that every 2 weeks to 3 weeks, it's actually a very economical tool in your program. My favorite is the insecticide performance, where we have various subsurface applications or applications for subsurface insects, as well as surface feeding, leaf feeding or thatch feeding type of insects. And let's take a look at the two charts. When applying Dispatch with a product such as Meridian, as well as in high rates or low rates, we're seeing that the percent control with Dispatch provided a better response for grub control versus alone. And that's important because many applications of grub controls is one application per year. You're timing it about right now or maybe in the next 30 days. So if you got one shot and you want to improve the consistency, matrix flow of the active ingredient through the soil profile, it makes a lot of good sense to apply Dispatch in that program to improve not only the efficacy, but to make sure that that active ingredient flows through that soil, whether you have organic soils, thatchy soils, a little more clay soils, and that last thing you want is a complaint toward mid-July or August where you have to go out and treat an insecticide for rescue treatments. So Dispatch, again, can be an economical tool, as well as improving the subsurface insects that become more and more predominant throughout the Midwest and throughout the Northeast, as well as the South. On the other hand, you look at surface feeding insects, thatch inhibiting insects, such as maybe chinch bugs, solid webworm larvae, or other type of feeding inhibitors. Using Dispatch at low rates on a biweekly basis does provide a very effective control on this. So from wilt water protection, efficiency of nitrogen, as well as insect control, again, Dispatch is one of our leading products out there. To kind of talk about herbicide performance, in many of our applicators in golf, lawn and landscape sports, we'll use various pre-emergents. And this past year, we've had a lot of rain. Maybe some inputs or some applications have been delayed. But by all means, if you're in that process of looking at applying pre-emergent, think in terms of Dispatch as another opportunity to add to your tank mix to improve the effectiveness. The studies here through Dr. Mike Fidanza at Penn State show that the percent of sprayable Dispatch with pendimethalin, as well as prodiamine, showing the effectiveness between July and August, where the green is more or less the Dispatch and pendimethalin, and Dispatch with prodiamine, that by all means, by the time the season was finishing up, crabgrass was much higher versus treated areas. So again, many of the consumers, professional people don't want to see crabgrass in late July or August, and if they do, it's a lot tougher to control that specific weed species at the post-emerge versus thinking in terms of starting early in the summer or late spring and applying Dispatch to help improve that AI through the soil profile. Get it where it needs to be. Okay, so what's it do for you? It's more of a summary. What increases your penetration of irrigation efficiencies. You have a better nutrient availability. It actually improves any type of reduction and apply nitrogen, so that's going to be important in areas where we maybe have more of a sandier profile. At the same time, your pre-emerge efficacy has improved along with some of the insecticides. So it's a product that has a lot of multiple features and application. If we take a look at some of the rates, it's very simple. It's more or less in an 8-ounce increment once a week, or 16 every 2 weeks, up to 24 ounces every 3. I actually recommend here in the Midwest 24 ounce per acre every 21 days if possible. But if you're using it for more of a spring application, early summer for pre-emerge, insecticide, it's going to be more of a when and where, but at least make one application or two in late May to early to mid-June. And again, it's compatible. It can be tank mixed with many products out there, and 16 ounces is kind of a standard, but here in the Midwest, I recommend a 24 ounce. So the takeaway notes here is just improved performance, irrigation management, and actually improves not only just the pesticide inputs or nutrient inputs, but has better infiltration and distribution of water moisture to the soil profile. If there's any questions, let us know. I'll just take a minute here, just kind of absorb that. Okay. Let's move on to another product that came to Aquatrols about a year and a half ago, and that's Aqueduct Flex. Take a look at the bag of how this product was introduced in the marketplace. It's a very simple bag with a pull across Ziploc topping where you can actually open and close it like a Ziploc bag. It's 44 pounds an acre, and it has both the effect of treating wind and wear for both prevention and curative, but it's also a very good product for applying as more of a spot treatment. Predominantly, it treats for localized dry spots, and at the same time, it can show efficacy within a few days from any type of summer stresses, and it's recommended to apply it predominantly on like a 3 to 4 week timeline. If you can apply irrigation, that's great, but the new dispersible granule that we've teamed up with the Andersons is on one of the best carriers that I've seen out there, and very little moisture is needed to actually release it off the carrier, and it dissolves very quickly. After application on fine turf, there's no footprinting, no issues with burning, and no odor, so very, very effective as far as treatment. So one can apply it on a drop spreader if they feel the need to, or a small hand spreader, or a rotary spreader, so it goes out very easy, no dust, and again, it's in a 44-pound bag. So as far as any type of conditions one sees on turf, they can use it when and where in sodded areas. I just came back from a trip this week from Iowa, where some of the turf managers were doing some sodding last year, and they found that the use of Aqueduct Flex on their prepared surfaces applied about 1.5 pounds per thousand, and then laying the sod over the top seemed to provide better knitting going into the fall. In the spring, the turf was much healthier than the areas that they did not use any of the Aqueduct Flex. But again, in maybe sports fields, very effective in some wear areas to kind of help percolate that moisture through, where there might be some ornamentals. One can just scratch the surface and apply Aqueduct Flex in some of the flower beds, and actually can be used in, I've had some folks using some hanging baskets around some of the properties. So predominantly, it's very simple. A bag is 44 pounds, and that treats 1 acre or pound per thousand. And if you need to use it in some higher stress areas, if you have in mid to late summer, it's usually a little bit higher rate out there. And again, I've had the costs presented out there as $150 a bag. So several bags that you might want to have in your arsenal is a good tool to have out there, and it can be a very effective product. All right. When you can't spread it, we have aqueducts in a liquid container. It's 2 by 2.5 like Dispatch, and predominantly it's has the same attributes as Aqueduct Flex, but it's more of a treating with a boom or a handgun, and it helps provide very good recovery from any type of moisture stresses. And if there's areas with high exposure to sun or stresses, it also helps reduce any type of wilting out there. Just a little bit of work from down at University of Florida. We look at the bar chart here where Aqueduct is treated at 8 ounces, 1,000 on a weekly basis versus the control. And from the turf quality being measured from 0 to 9, where 9 is perfection and 0 is pretty thin. The blue line is Aqueduct, and through May through June through July, so you're in like a 2-week observation. You're seeing the recovery and the turf quality. Plant health is much superior than untreated at all. On the opposite side, you take a look at the same type of response on localized dry spots. that aqueduct at the same rate being observed from Florida, applied 8 ounces every 2 weeks or on a 1-week interval, an observation every 2 weeks. We're seeing the opposite effect where localized dry spot is reduced significantly with aqueduct, and the untreated area is still fairly significant. So between both I'm gonna go back on this slide here, turf quality and turf improvement of localized dry spot, it's again another tool that provides good air to water, moisture to the soil, and at the same time, better turf plant health efficacy. Again, areas of application goes from landscape, commercial properties, as well as sports turf and any type of stresses that shows any type of localized dry spot. I mentioned on some of the graphs prior to that it's an 8-ounce rate, but some of the folks find it necessary to go in on a weekly basis and split that to go at least 4 ounces every week or 8 ounces every 2. Kind of a wrap up here in the last few minutes or the last few seconds. A couple of the ideas that Aquatrols team has put together is 3 pillars of what we're saying in the marketplace to provide water conservation, just because water is becoming more and more precious. At the same time, we're looking at redistributing the active ingredient so that the AI gets placed when and where it needs to be. And the final pillar is a nutrient conservation, where we want to make sure there's a balance of nutrients in the soil for the plant health. In summary, and finishing up here, Aquatrols has launched a little incentive out there for some of our turf managers. Goes between now and end of June. It's a little opportunity to purchase products from our key core products such as Revolution, to Dispatch, to Aqueduct Flex. And on this promotion, as I mentioned with Dispatch in our webinar today and Aqueduct Flex, if you purchase 30 gallons of Dispatch, you can get the Yeti Roti. If you purchase 3 bags of Aqueduct Flex, you can get the little coaster from Yeti. And we just announced last week that if one gets 20 bags of Aqueduct Flex between now and the end of June, they're eligible for also a Yeti Roti. So with that, that's going to be through our website, through approach.aquatrols.com, and your Tessman seed rep in the territories that we have in Minnesota and the Dakotas, as well as Wisconsin, one can take a look at that. But one of the key things I wanted to share with you is that our product Zipline, which is a combination surfactant holder mover, is not yet registered here in Minnesota as well as Illinois. So it's a little promotion we have to say thank you for the business, and hopefully you might have a chance to take a look at that. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to my friends at Tessman Seed, and thank people for watching this webinar. I know it'll be placed on YouTube, and should you have any questions, I'm John Turner at aquatrols.com, and I can be reached at that and provide any questions or address any issues you might have out there. So with that, I'll conclude today's webinar, and wishing people a great Memorial Day weekend. And again, thank you for your time.